unit number 1. This is the genesis of altars and sacrifices. Our 5 lessons will be summarized no other than by Brother Sells, and he is coming at this time.
Good morning. Our overarching theme is sacred altars and holy offerings. And when we got into May's lesson, they dealt a lot with holy places, costly sacrifices. And so now we are at a place where they do a little bit of wordplay, and they say the genesis of altars and sacrifices and everything comes from the book of Genesis. Genesis often gets used as a way of saying the beginning. Yes, sir. So the beginning of altars and sacrifices, we have a lot of first mentions. We have a listing of first mentions, and then we even have some only mentions. So you can see the play on words that is Genesis, the beginning. Here it also includes foundational first, altars, offerings, and God's standard. From the very beginning, God introduces a standard of what is and is not acceptable, decided by him, and then a covenant relationship, both sides of the table, decided by him. I got a lot of sports fans in my class, so one of the things I said is if we could just let God negotiate our contracts. If we just let God negotiate our contracts, we'd be all right, because the temptation living here in this world is believing it couldn't be the best representation for me if I don't get a say. So from the very beginning, you're going to see where even where God gets to say, what it speaks to on my behalf is better than what I could have done for myself. All of that is in the very beginning. That's a very foundational thing that all of this is stacked upon and for. You'll see it in the very beginning. And so, and the words covenant and sin get used for the first time. There is a continuation of divine direct revelation with speaking directly to people. Nobody told me God said it. God said it straight to me. And so then imagine now what it looks like, God talking to me and me being disobedient. God speaking straight to me in this foundational, we got the first family. It's got to be foundational. And God says to them individually, as we get to these lessons, where he uses words like covenant. He uses words like sin. Not because they're reading it, not because someone's standing in a pulpit telling them. God told them himself. We got to get started. I want to tell you that what I want to do that's different than what I've done before is I want to pay close attention to, and you all have commentaries. Our pastor made a decision that he would not do a teaching book, a student book. Everybody have a teaching book. Some of y'all may not know that, but he didn't. He decided everybody would get the same level of commentary. In that commentary, you have where it says lesson aims. And every time you get to lesson aim number 3, is what is it that I'm supposed to now go and live out? Don't matter who's over there. After Don't matter who's over there. I'm supposed to go take lesson aim number 3 and live this out. Here we go with the very first thing here. I want to tell you that in 1998, Scott and Kathy Tottenham opened their first storage facility, Amazing Spaces. Their focus was storage experience, storage security, storage climate control that focused on customer needs. Now, what we will see over time in the first family and maybe our own is the valuing of Amazing Graces, not Amazing Spaces, not the place I need extra storage for the stuff that I have. But it's going to be about grace. So my thesis is the amazing we are amazed by the most is the one that's going to shape how we see altars, offerings, and sacrifices the most. Do I see Amazing Graces and I'm moved by that the most? Or is it the stuff I stacked? And that shapes how I see the altar and offerings. Our very first lesson was the offerings of Cain and Abel. The lesson aim: commit to a practice of doing right through my giving. Whenever your teacher got through, whenever your study concluded and wrapped up, we were supposed to go look for places where we could do right by our own giving. Commit to a practice of doing right through our own giving. In this lesson text, these offerings, and our golden text says, the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? The context that what we're supposed to look at and take, and I like to use, because I feel like there's a harmony of the scripture. And one of the things I did, I was sharing with the teachers at Teachers Preparation, I passed out envelopes in my class. My count was off. At least that's what I thought. Brother Michael, I kept thinking about that thing, and I realized that if what I had done would have worked out, that would not have been the accurate example, Minister Donald, Minister Ronald, of the lesson. Brother Wright, I thought I messed up my count was off. And so I relied upon my good friend Reverend R to go without. I had to buy him lunch later. Yeah. But I gave everybody an envelope. They had different levels of money in them. Some had 20. There were some 5s and 1s. This is how you know this is a lesson that came from the Lord. That is not what I wanted to do. That was not how I was going to do that lesson. I thought I messed up the lesson because there was somebody that didn't get an envelope. And so I realized if my point was that God will accept an offering if first there'll be a willing mind, I needed somebody to not have an envelope because they still had a willing mind. When we look at this text with Cain and Abel, Cain didn't understand. I brought something. My brother brought something. But the text says, I want to find the verse. Verse 5, Genesis chapter 4. But unto Cain and to his offering, he, being God, had not respect. And watch this now. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. That's why God said, I can see on the inside of you how you feel about this and how you feel about me. He cautions him for the very first time we hear this word sin. He says, sin lieth and waiteth at the door. If you're not, so watch this. He has not done it yet. But from within himself, it registers and it shouts out loud to God that I think this is a competition. I'm looking at what somebody else brings, and what I bring, I'm not looking at what you look at. Here then is the standard from the foundational beginning in the first family. God is looking at somebody who might not have an envelope, let alone what's in it. And what he looks at is on the inside of them and their heart and their attitude. It's possible for you to please God not based upon your bank account, because he doesn't desire what he's already given you that you stack, because that would be Amazing Spaces. What he desires is for your appreciation of the amazing graces. And what is showing the appreciation ain't what's on the envelope, ain't what's in the envelope. It's first in your will and mind. It's first on the inside of you. So the standard here, early on, before the murder, I'm talking this, what do they call it? Direct and divine revelation. He didn't have to go to the temple and hear the priest. He didn't have to have that feeling like, ooh, Pastor Russell's reading my mail. God told him. Your countenance is fallen. How many of you know he ain't looking on his face on the outside? He's reading the face of his heart. Your countenance is fallen. It goes on that he warns him. If thou doest well, thou shalt not be, that thou doest well, thou shalt not be accepted. And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and until thee shall be this desire, and that shall rule over you. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. I got to get out of here. I want to go move on, but I got to tell you, there's some handles, not for our hands, but our ears. The first is understanding that God knows our hearts. The mindset that we bring the offering with. He has even fixed it, brothers and sisters, that the lack of an offering isn't a stumbling block. That even if I don't have it, but I have a willing mind, and at first it be acceptable. He accepts that. And he warns and cautions the first time we hear the word sin, and then we see the murder of a brother by a brother. Be careful how we enter into competitions, how we see our brothers and our sisters. Cain is still killing Abel up in here. Still, with how we see one another and think it's a competition. You already have the attention of God. You don't have to compete for the attention of God. You don't have to tear your sister down because you think if I can unscrew her bulb, my light shines brighter. That ain't how it works. You don't have to unscrew the bulb of your brother in order to get God's attention. You already have it. And here's the last thing. Even after all of that, he still shows that the foundational family relationship, amazing graces, because he won't let the first murderer be killed. In this day and time of brothers canceling brothers, sisters canceling sisters, the cancel culture, God says, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be fugitive and a vagabond. It almost sounds like now he's valuing the presence of God, which he already had, when it looked like he wanted the value being told his offering was better than his brother's. But now I feel like if I ain't got your presence, from the very beginning, how do you feel about the presence of God in your life? It's right there. And then he says, watch this, he says, vengeance shall be, it says, fugitive and vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that fighteth me shall slay me. God says no. I'm at 15 and I'm leaving on this one. It says, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod to the east of Eden. Our lesson game was, can I commit to a practice of doing right through giving? Our second lesson is Noah builds an altar. This one got me from the very beginning because all I've ever heard growing up is talking about the time it took, the measurements and everything for him to build this ark. And you mean to tell me that this lesson ain't going to be called Noah builds an ark? It's going to be called Noah builds an altar? Well, it seems that these altars and offerings were foundational in how we saw our relationship with God, and that it was about atonement for sin. It was a place of worship. It was a way of establishing covenant relationship with God. And so here, this altar here comes after the flood. comes after the building. It is amazing. That's one of the things that I think is a good handle for our ears and our hands is, after everything you've been through, now it's not the time to stop listening to God. After everything he's brought you through, now can't be the time to stop listening to him. And you might say, Sales, why would you say it like that in that way? Well, they spent more time on the ark than they spent in the storm. It's easy to look for a reason. Now, look, let me take this in my own hands, Sister Henry. The 601st year, first day of the first month. Oh, that's 111. Oh, I feel God talking to me. But they got direct revelation. He does talk directly to them. So you don't need to interpret, because what it says, God spoke, Noah listened, then Noah acted. He doesn't leave the ark until the same God that shut him up in told him it was okay to come off. And when he comes off, I have an experience with God unlike any I've ever had. And I have a covenant now. God is talking directly to me about something that he's done, something he will never do again, and his proclamation about who he is. And we also need to recommit this earth. This earth has been judged. So there's a need for atonement. This earth has been wiped clean. So there's a need now. If you would do it for your building of your house, if you would go write scripture on the lumber, if you would call Pastor Russ and say, come to a house blessing, because this is a beginning, and we just can't see having this new beginning and God not be a part of it. So this altar here is a new beginning, a Genesis for Genesis. And in it, he tells them, and I forgot to tell you now, it says that doggone lesson name number 3. When all your teachers got through, what we should do is write a prayer of thanks to God for one instance of his covenant faithfulness. This word covenant gets used. And it says there's a distinction here he gives Noah because he wants the clean animals to be offered up. Did I tell you that there's a standard here that we get introduced to? And so we cannot skirt and try to work around God's standard. It consistently shows up throughout all of these lessons. And so he says, I want the clean animals offered up for a burnt offering, right? And it says in verse 18 of chapter 8, it says, and Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth unto the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings. Verse 21, and the Lord smelled a sweet savor. And the Lord said in his heart, little anthropomorphism here, because this is a very powerful thing here. God says in his heart, Moses is writing, and he's probably writing from the perspective of a Mosaic law lens, but that's not what Noah has. Noah just has God talking to him. and all so it still get down to in a simplified way. When you hear God speak, do you do what God says? When you hear God speak, do you do what God says? Because God speaks, Noah listens, it don't stop there. It says Noah acts. So then he does it, and he says now, so Moses is writing, and he's giving clear words and terminology that Noah don't have. Noah just has, I'm obeying God. So this acceptable clean thing is a standard that's there, but it's the first. All of you who have been called to do something you've never been done before, you are setting the standard. You didn't have nothing to go by. And so after he does this, We have a standard of offerings that are clean and acceptable. And then watch this. It says, and the Lord smelled it, the accepting by God. It was acceptable to God. And it says, for the imagination of man's, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the part. It says, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil. Watch that, from heart to heart. You see that? He says in his heart, I don't know how they could hear God's heart, but the anthropomorphism is that in God's heart, this is what he says. But then he speaks to what's happening with the heart of man. And it says the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite anymore every living thing as I have done. This covenant now, this altar and this testimony and this cleansing and this earth blessing, after it's been destroyed, it says now in verse 22, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. And our text had paired text, so just so I get out here, chapter 9, verse 11 through 30 says, and I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there be any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant. No, I saw a rainbow sign. That's a song we like to sing. And it says, now it's a song that has lyrics connected to Scripture. And not just that, covenant promise. So when you're singing that, you reminding yourself of what God promised you. And it says here, between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. Verse 13, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Write a prayer of thanks to God for a specific instance. A specific instance. And our third lesson, Abraham makes an offering. I'm fond of this one because his offering in the next lesson goes from being an offering to making an offering. Abraham makes an offering. The lesson 3 shows up and it says, when we get through studying this, we ought to be able to identify how to exhibit greater trust in the Lord in a current difficulty. Whatever it is you have, there's something going on right now. We don't have to be super saints. You don't have to come to the mic and tell us, but there might be something that is a fixture in your prayer life right now. And so how can I trust God even more to handle this? How can I? So whatever it is, in this lesson, you have Abraham, father of the faithful, father of many nations, no child. Then you get one. The one he prays to make it possible. The Bible declares, in painting a picture, it talked about when Melchizedek came out, that this old man ran like a young man and went out to greet him and prepare an offering. And now all of a sudden, after he gets blessed with this one sign, Isaac, God says, I want you to take Isaac and I want you to sacrifice him. I mean, I know I made mistakes before with Ishmael and how I believed I need to help you to help me. So I tried to do it my way, and I do have a son named Ishmael with the handmaid. But that wasn't what you told me you were going to do. And now I did what you told me to. I have Isaac, and you want me to now take Isaac. I trusted you eventually to do what you said you were going to do. And now you've given me some marching orders to go up a mountain, a hill, and you changed my name. That out of me supposed to be many nations. Well, how is that going to happen if I kill the child that you gave me, that I did the way you told me to do it, with my wife Sarah who didn't even look like she could bear a child, let alone nourish and nurture, and now you want me to kill that child. Golden text says, Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, my provider. As it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord. Well, wait a minute, something must have happened there in order for him to call it God will provide. So the picture that I love that was painted for me by, some Baptist preacher gave this to me. He said, can't you see him, Isaac, and the servants going up one side, and the ram in the bush going up the other side? And then when they get to the top, Isaac says, I see the fire. I see the altar. And watch this now, because what we're going to go to is the same one on the altar for a sacrifice is a recipient of the promise he must keep alive that God is going to fulfill through him when he provides a ram in the bush. So he goes from being on the altar to building altars and offering offerings himself to the same. The God that you told me about, Daddy, you said that he will provide for himself a sacrifice. You know we couldn't just stay with Old Testament covenant. There has to be a fulfilling of prophecy. There has to be a hint. And so he says here, Abraham, verse 10, stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Verse 11 says, and the angel of the Lord called on him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here am I. Look at what it says in verse 12. It says, and he said, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son. I'm back to amazing graces or amazing spaces. Is there something that you are stacking and storing up that is held back in reserve away from God? Or is it that everything that God has graced you with, he got access to? Not just because he could give it to you, but that you will give it and bring it to him. Don't get quiet on me right there. Amazing graces is better than amazing spaces. But spaces, that business is based upon I got more stuff than I got space for. I need somebody to create a business for me to have another room not attached to my house for all the stuff. And so can God get what he's provided us stewardship over? The promises that he's given you, can he get the promise? Are you willing to give to him what he's given to you? I got to go now. It says, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up. I've often thought, someone shared the idea, you mean to tell me this strong ram couldn't free itself? Because he told the servants to wait. But this old man could go and just free this ram, take his son off of the altar, put the ram on the altar. It had to be a plan that the ram in the bush was cooperating with. I don't do it. I love to tell you that no man take my life. But I lay it down. I gotta go. I gotta go to 22. And so Isaac, in our next lesson, Isaac calls on the name of the Lord. It says, identify evidence of God's presence in my life and express gratitude to God for his presence. We got to value and appreciate the presence of God. And one of the things that we see here, as we look at our key text, it says he builded an altar there. Went from being on one to building one. and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. We learned that they had been digging wells, but not every well tapped. And I want to tell you, as we get to our last lesson and close here, God's using of Genesis and painting the picture of who he has a covenant relationship with is not a covenant with perfect people. Even when his daddy did the same thing, or he made the mistake of painting the picture of his wife as being his sister. And Isaac did the same thing. So you could say it's true. Modeling is the first mode of teaching. But there don't have to be generational curses when there's a covenant relationship with God. The covenant relationship is what we bear witness to and talk about, not generational curses. Because there are no perfect people, even in the text, so nobody has an excuse for believing God wouldn't want somebody like me. God wouldn't use somebody like me. We've covered enough lessons right now just in this particular month. God ain't looking for perfection over obedience. He's looking for obedience over perfection. Will you do and be what God called you to be, not because you never messed up, but even after you messed up? Even if your father made a mistake and you made the same mistake, I'm the same God now because my covenant is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not Abraham or Abram and then Ishmael. It's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so I'm going to do what I told you I'm going to do for my name's sake with my covenant agreement, even if it's with your father. One of the reasons why Isaac is where he is, he left because dad is dead now. There are people who can't stand the way your light shine. They fear your prosperity. They filled in daddy's well. They're digging these wells because where they were, they are no longer. Access, it looks like, access to the foundation of what my mom and dad, my family, grandma and grandpa did, I don't have that anymore. And see, access is important because that's where we end at. Well, not only does he tap a well after digging other wells, the people he was on the run from, they were actually concerned and fearful that he might tell his God that they mistreated him. Don't you know there's somebody who may not like you? Because this is one of the key points that I think is a handle for our ears. I'm guilty of wanting people to respect me more than respect my God. I didn't say y'all are guilty. I said I'm guilty. And so he's on the run from people that are afraid his God will put them on the run. When they catch up to him, they're concerned because of the lie he told about his wife. Don't you know what we might have done by disrespecting the covenant relationship of marriage? That's in there too. We might have done something that was disrespectful of the covenant relationship of marriage because you said that was your sister or not your wife. And so when they get through and he builds this altar, it's after they said we saw certainly that the Lord is with you. People that you think are your enemies have no questions about you walking with the Lord. They might tell other lies on you, but they tell the truth about your relationship with God. They see God in you. Have you had people say something to you, don't even know you, talk about you must really know the Lord because of some behavior they were watching and witnessing, and you didn't even know they were looking at that? And this is what they finished with. They said, let there be now an oath betwixt us and even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee, covenant again, that thou wilt do us no hurt, and we have not touched thee. Don't tell your God that we're doing something bad to you. We're afraid that. Don't you know? Selves, don't you know? It's more important that the people around you respect your God more than they respect you. Because if they respect your God, don't you know your God got you? Don't you know if they believe that the God you serve is real, they will make sure that everything is okay. They may not know how you do what you do. They may be intimidated by how you do what you do. But don't you know, respecting your God is more important than them respecting you? Don't you know how we define things down here involves getting respect for me, but don't necessarily include my God? Don't you know there's got to be consistency, that I want people to know my God more than know me, respect my God? There's somebody who you are convinced is an enemy. But if you convince yourself that they know your God, if they respect your God can take care of you. I'm about to get out of here now. I'm about to leave now. It says Jacob sets up a sacred pillar. Lesson name number 3 is make a plan to commemorate a particular time when God's presence and work was evident in your life. Do you remember a time? You don't have to remember many, when nobody could do for you what God did for you. It could have been today. Could have been some years past. But what it is the resume of God working in your life. You don't need too many, but you need to hold on to the ones you got. If you got a time in your life when God has shown himself mighty in a way that's so discernible that you can't forget about it, that you want to talk about it and witness and testify about it. Jacob is not Israel yet. He has not wrestled all night, been touched in the hollow of the thigh. He's Jacob. He's a trickster. I like God's word because I ain't always done what I do now. I haven't always lived the way I live now. I like a story about a trickster who can find his way back to the Lord. I see some stuff where the trickster got tricked by his father-in-law Laban. He saw somebody find Rebekah, and he wanted to work for Rebekah. I don't mind 7 years for Rebekah. That seemed like a lot. We have a problem courting for 90 days now. But he didn't have a problem. But he got tricked with the older sister, Leah, and then he had to work another 7 years to get the woman he wanted. He has not been renamed yet. He's still Jacob. But I want to tell you, it says now, he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord because, in this last lesson, the golden text, it says, Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillow and set it up. What is it that he experienced? So I can get out of here. I don't know on a mission Sunday at a Baptist church how I could close and get out of here with Jacob seeing Jacob's ladder, representing access to heaven. I think the Hebrew word is soli, and soli translates into it's either a ramp, a way, or a path. I don't know what you do on a Baptist church on Mission Sunday to close, and the last lesson is about a ramp, a way, or a path to heaven. I don't know what you would do, but in this first family of covenant relationships and promise, God is still providing a ramp, a way, and access to heaven. Still today, Jacob had an experience where he set up and built an altar, and in it, he got some if statements. That if God would do this, and if God would clothe him, he'd make it back to his father's house safely. But he's about to go to Iran. It's a very unsafe journey. And he says now in these if statements, he said, I believe it's not, I'm thinking if God will do this, I'm saying now for myself. This ain't Abraham. This ain't Isaac. I'm believing God for myself. That God is going to do this for me and manifest this for me in my life. And it ends with us with this find your purpose and do your duty. And after I make a plan to commemorate a particular time when God's presence was work and evidence in my life, I don't want to stop right there where God did his part. I want to find my purpose and do my duty. And the only way I can leave is I got to tell you that there is a way. There is a ramp. As the angels, they said, going hither and forth on the altar. And that way is Jesus Christ. I got to tell you, there's still a way in a covenant relationship where he can manifest his promises. He's been looking for ways to keep his promise. I haven't always been looking for my purpose. I haven't always been looking for my duty. And doggone it, these lesson names number 3, they always seem to come back and talk about, now what you gonna do, Sales? After June is over, and we done talked about altars, offerings, and covenants. What you gonna do in your covenant relationship? Have you found your purpose? Have you realized that it ain't what's written on the outside of this thing? It ain't really what's on the inside. But I remember a preacher at Windsor Village saying one time, he said, I want you to hold this up to your head. I want you to repeat after me. He said, in spite of what I say or do, this is what I think of you. I heard my pastor here at Greater Jerusalem say, if first there be a willing mind, how do you see God? How do you see your purpose from God? How do you see your covenant relationship with God? There is a way. There is a path. There is a ramp. You don't need a ramp unless you got to fly over empty spaces. Not amazing spaces, amazing graces. The ramp takes you to God's grace. God's grace carries you from next to next. God fulfills his promises in his relationship. And all of this is trying to get us to do is find our purpose, do our duty, and see it the way God sees it. I believe whichever amazing that we're amazed the most by, that's what shapes our lens of how we see the altar, the offering, and the covenant relationship. It's not what's in your amazing spaces. It's the amazing graces of God and how you see it here in your mind. Because it was never about getting stuff to you as much as getting you. He can always pour more through our hands than in them. He wants you to reach for and hold his hand. Let him lead and guide you. You're worth more than whatever you could store in an amazing space. He's invested so much grace in you. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. You can't carry nothing in your amazing spaces to glory with you. It can't make the trip. Your and my flesh can't make the trip. Only what you do for Christ will last. And it's what's in our spirit that he reads and determines if it's an acceptable offering. If first there'll be a willing mind. And then work and do the work of your Father while you can.
We thank God for his word. Thank God for the lesson aims. And we thank you for your attendance this morning. And we will be dismissed for our next phase of worship.